right, everybody. This is not a warning. This is not a drill. We are starting the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I really cannot thank you enough for being here tonight, for supporting each other in the space right now, and just to get here. So I am Susie Kahn Weinberg. I am your... That was easy. I am thrilled to be here tonight at O'Shaughnessy's. Some might call it my second home, to welcome you to Big Shoulder Stories Storytelling Showcase. And let me just explain, it's not my second home because I love beer so much, but for the past 10 years, from this very spot, I've been co-producing a monthly storytelling show called Is This a Thing? Many of you think you're here tonight for Is This a Thing? Surprise! We typically take August off. But not this year. This year, I decided to swoop in and grab this second Monday of the month here at O'Shaughnessy's to bring to you a Big Shoulder Stories event. What is Big Shoulder Stories, you wonder? Glad you asked. Big Shoulder Stories is a storytelling production company I started 5 years ago. So let's do the math. Is this a thing? 10. Big Shoulders, 5. Big Shoulders, it was birthed from all I learned at Is This a Thing? With the intention, the goal, the mission of Big Shoulder Stories is to elevate the voices of the people who change communities in Chicago, and working with nonprofits and mission-driven organizations throughout the city to help them tell their stories. So that is tonight's show, Big Shoulder Stories. Don't be disappointed, Is This a Thing lovers? I promise you. It's the same format, but a different intention, and I'm thrilled to be able to do both here in my second home. So as any good story should do, the stories tonight are meant to inspire us to feel something. Maybe it's compassion or frustration or surprise. Perhaps it's a call to action. Nonprofits, mission-driven organizations, they depend on us to get involved and to care and to lean in and to want to know more. And that's where Big Shoulders can play a part in making that happen, because nothing makes someone care and lean in and listen more than a story. Right? All right. I was going to clap, but no. Okay, so we have so many people here tonight from Chicago's amazing, vibrant storytelling community. So you all know what I'm talking about, and those who don't will very soon. So just about tonight's show, just like the name Big Shoulders Stories comes from the Carl Sandburg poem, Chicago, so does tonight's theme. When he wrote the poem in 1914, Sandburg saw Chicago for all its strength and its potential, and also for its rawness and wickedness and ugliness. Yet, like us, Carl Sandburg loved this city and had faith and pride in it. Here are a couple lines from the poem. City of the Big Shoulders, come and show me another city with lifted heads, singing so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning, under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs, that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs the heart of the people. The burden of destiny. When thinking about the theme for tonight, that phrase from the poem just grabbed me, and it has indeed proven to be a very thoughtful prompt for many of tonight's tellers. Is a burden of destiny terrible, as Sandburg says, or can it become purpose and maybe even a blessing? So I am thrilled to introduce you all tonight to 8 storytellers to explore this with us through their own personal narratives. They're from some of the most determined, resilient organizations that work here to make a difference. Our tellers are involved in these organizations in many ways. Some are volunteers, some are on staff, recipients of the services, or even the founders themselves. I hope you each have a program to read about these organizations, and there's their website so you can check out more. On the program on the front is a pretty small QR code with an ask. I would love you all to consider making it's not a contribution, but I guess it is. It's $10 to be here tonight. You're welcome to make that as big or as small as you want. But I would love it so I can offer our tellers a little bit to thank them for the time and effort that they put in here to tell their stories on behalf of the organizations they're involved with. So check out the QR code. If you don't have a program, ask your neighbor. And I have more. All right, well, thank you for that. And let's get started. Big Shoulder Stories presents Burden of Destiny. All right, so our first storyteller, Rebecca Kling, is an educator, performer, community organizer, storyteller, and advocate for social change. Rebecca's art and advocacy work is rooted with the understanding that there is no one right way to communicate that will land with everybody. For over a decade, she has worked with hundreds of community organizations, civil rights groups, and elected representatives to elevate the experience of transgender people and to bring transgender issues into discussion of public education and policy. Rebecca firmly believes that understanding combats bigotry and that everyone has the ability to push for a more just and equitable world. To learn more, check out Rebecca's website, www.rebeccakling.com. I am thrilled to have Rebecca kick off tonight's show, and she will make her way up here.
Thank you. Wonderful to be back in this space. So lovely to see you all tonight. I have this running joke with my queer friends about becoming the first trans person to do something very specific and very mundane. I want to be remembered as the first trans person to ever disrupt traffic by jaywalking. I'll be the first trans person to ever take the red eye from Seattle to DC. I'll be the first trans person to ever poop in the Starbucks bathroom at the Starbucks on Foster that's near Lawrence by the PetSmart. This running joke comes from these two trans women I once met, politicians in Texas. One of them said she was the first trans woman to ever hold elected office in Texas. The other said she was the first trans woman to ever be elected to office in Texas. See, the one of them had been appointed, so she was technically the first to hold office, but the other had been elected, so she was the first to be elected to office. They both found this slice of history that they could claim for themselves, even if it took some wordsmithing. Wanting to be the first at something, I think, requires imagining what the future could look like, how to get from here to there. But I grew up really trying not to think about the future. It was safer to leave my own future untold, unthought about, a sort of fog that was cozy if I didn't think about it too hard. The future was scary and dangerous. Best not to dwell on it. Now, I learned this because as an elder millennial approaching 40, I was online in the late 90s. Come back with me to this world of dial-up internet and AOL CDs and a shared family computer in a room that anyone could walk into at any point at all, no matter what you were doing on that computer, at any point at all. Both of my parents are here tonight. It was through that computer, though, that I started to put language to this thing that I'd always known, that boy didn't fit. But the websites that talked about being trans in the late 90s, they were bad. And I don't just mean bad visually, although they were bad visually. They had bouncing pixels and weird fonts and these effects that would cause your cursor to have sparkles behind it wherever it went. The content was pretty awful, too. These websites were mostly written by older trans women who, with the best of intentions, told the world and told me that being transsexual, this is before the move from transsexual to transgender, which is a whole other thing, that being transsexual came at a huge cost. That finding yourself required losing everything. Friends, family, community, home, stability. I didn't like the sound of that, but the only other material I could find about being trans was daytime talk shows and, of course, porn. As I explored the internet of the late 90s, though, I encountered things like the Cogiati test, the combined gender identity and transsexuality inventory. This was a multiple choice test that was supposed to be able to tell you whether or not you were a closeted transsexual woman. I was drawn like a moth to the flame, and for some reason, this test is still online, so I was able to look up some of the questions. Question 6. You meet somebody, and they are polite to you but seem a little distant. They're actually secretly attracted to you. How likely are you to know this? Question 45. In your early days at school, how were you at spelling? Question 62. Visualize the following entirely in your head. Do not draw or write anything, just use your mind. Picture a pair of cubes. The two cubes are connected by a bar through their middle, like a dumbbell. Imagine the dumbbell object is floating in front of you, one cube close to you, the other directly away from you. Now imagine that the cube nearest you is red and the cube farthest from you is blue. The dumbbell is built of two cubes and begins to rotate. The red cube nearer dropping down in the way, the blue far rotating up and nearer. The dumbbell continues to rotate down, stand vertical in front of you, the red cube at the bottom, blue cube at the top, continue the direction of the rotation over 3 times exactly starting at the stop with the red cube in the bottom, blue cube at the top. What is the position of either cube, red or blue? If you are thinking, what does that have to do with being trans? That instinct is correct. The person who made that test, I have learned, was just a random trans woman. Not an expert, not someone who was able to offer that from a place of wisdom. As a teen, though, this very unscientific test told me I probably wasn't a transsexual woman, which, spoiler alert, incorrect. I've recently been watching home videos from my childhood of my older brother and I catching fireflies in the backyard, of our family hiking in the woods, of learning to ride a bike. There's one video I keep coming back to of my mom and my brother working on a cake for his 5th or 6th birthday. It's the late 80s, and they're in this amazingly yellow and beige kitchen. Roller chairs and a big linoleum table. My dad is filming. In most of these home videos, he's the one filming and not visible in the camera shot. And I sit on the counter behind my mother, behind my brother, with a bowl of batter next to me, just shoveling handfuls into my mouth. I love this short clip. I'm maybe 3 at the oldest. And it can't be longer than a minute or two, but I'm so uninhibited and happy. Videos have their own sort of destiny to them, especially home movies. No matter how many times you watch them, the same thing happens. The outcome is unchanging and predetermined. As an adolescent, I could only conceive of 2 destinies for myself, 2 ways to be trans. I could be a lonely transsexual making sad websites with poor color choices, or I could be a transsexual porn star who ended up on Jerry Springer. I couldn't imagine an option C of living my life the best I could, neither dispensing sad advice online nor guesting on Springer. Maybe that's why I don't like the idea of destiny, let alone a burden of destiny. I don't like my imagining that my future is outside of my own control. Of course, while I did avoid those 2 specific destinies, there are lots of things about my future, about all of our futures, that are outside of our control. Not just the body I was born into, or the family, or the life, but much bigger things like the level of global carbon, the actions of the US Supreme Court, Donald fucking Trump. But on good days, I still am able to find hope because I know from experience that tomorrow can be better than today, that things can change. I also know we all can have a role in making it better. A teeny push here and there every day, hopefully, and then occasionally together in big pushes like, oh, I don't know, I'm just going to spitball here, say an election, which, come to think of it, there's one coming up. That's right, this was all just a ruse, a ploy to get you to vote. No, I'm thank you for the one person who's in favor of voting. Let the record show one person likes to vote here. No, I'm not going to go into a big Pollyanna-ish thing. Voting doesn't solve everything. Voting is a tiny piece of the puzzle, and I'm excited to hear more stories about other pieces of that puzzle tonight. Likewise, democracy doesn't guarantee a better future, but we can build that better future. Destiny be damned. Take it from me, the first trans woman to poop in a Starbucks. Thank you.
I'm now appreciating how close I was to Rebecca. I am so sorry. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Rebecca and I met at my synagogue about a year ago when she was invited to talk about how storytelling is an essential tool in advocacy. And I was so taken with her. I invited her to lunch, and that conversation is actually a big part of how I ended up here tonight doing this. So I am so indebted to you, Rebecca, and I'm so glad you kicked off tonight. Thank you. Next up is Becca Schaffer. Becca is the Manager of Development and Stewardship at Braven, Inc., a national nonprofit focused on empowering college students for impactful careers. Someone told me don't use a staple. They were correct. Prior to her role at Braven, Becca served as a college and career guidance counselor dedicated to providing equitable education opportunities to young people in Chicago. A graduate from the University of Chicago in 2018, Becca is currently pursuing an MBA at U of C Booth School of Business. She is an active leader in her community at Oasis Church Chicago. She's also a reader, a writer, a pop culture enthusiast, and she's thinking about getting into jogging. She says probably not, and I could tell you don't have time. You don't have time. Come on up.
Hello. Hi, thanks. Okay. So when I first applied to the University of Chicago, I didn't know anything. And that's not just me being self-deprecating. My roommate who is here tells me I'm not allowed to say I don't know. I went through a phase where I was always like, oh, I don't know. And she said I have to admit that I do know things sometimes, but I really didn't know anything back then. I didn't know anything about school. I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know anything about how to apply to college. My mother dropped out of college when she was in her first semester, and my dad dropped out of high school. So those conversations were just not things that we were having in our house. I didn't know that UChicago was considered a pseudo Ivy League. I definitely didn't know that their slogan was "Where fun comes to die," and yeah, I didn't know it was like really, really freaking hard. But what I did know about was my family. I grew up in Kansas City. I loved living with my family. I am the daughter of Denise and Nisha Schaefer. I am the younger sister of Stephanie and the big sister of William and Elizabeth. And I just wasn't the type of person who ever had dreams of leaving home. But my high school guidance counselor, Miss Tony, told me I needed to apply anyway, so I did. And the night before the application was due, I remember sitting on my bed in the room that I shared with my 5-year-old sister, and I started writing the essay. Maybe you all know this, obviously I did not, but UChicago is really well known for having these quirky, weird application questions like apples or oranges, and that's the question, or where's Waldo? And I don't know. So I chose the question that I thought I could make the most amount of sense of, which was a Spanish quote that I thought about sharing with you all tonight, but I keep forgetting to become bilingual, and my Duolingo streak is 2 days. So loosely translated, the quote was essentially a prompt asking us to consider, are we made up mostly of our circumstances, or are we people that are made up mostly of our biology? So essentially, what is the stuff that we're made up of? And so, of course, with 1 hour left before I had to submit the essay, I wrote about the thing that I know, which is family. I wrote about how I inherited my humility from my father, how I inherited my grace from my mother, my sister's bravery, my brother's sense of individuality, and my youngest sister's creativity. Essentially, that I wasn't me without them. Which is a really sweet thing to say, but horrible in practice when you then get accepted to the University of Chicago and you have to move away from these people. So it was a huge surprise that I was accepted, was not considering that as a possibility. And I just remember when the letter came in, my dad running around the house screaming, $280,000. Which is the amount of money that he was not about to spend on my tuition. And so he and my mom were calling our relatives, and they were crying and celebrating, and I was crying too, but for different reasons. I just was so sad that I was going to have to leave them. I still recall the day that we actually moved in and they dropped me off, and it sounds so dramatic, but it felt that way. I was looking out the window and I could see my little sister crying and waving from our family's van, and I was crying and just had never felt more heartbroken in my whole life. So the adjustment to life at U Chicago, as you can imagine, was really, really, really tough. Beyond the rigorous academics, I just had never actually faced loneliness or depression or anxiety ever in my life. So it really was the first time that I felt like I didn't even recognize myself. And one afternoon, I was maybe about 3 weeks in, I was sitting in our lounge in our dorm, and I was working on my calculus homework, which was kicking my ass. And I was just surrounded by everything else around me was so normal. There were people at the table that were working on their homework too. There were some guys playing video games across the hall. There were some girls cooking and laughing in the kitchen. And I felt like I was getting swallowed up and just drowning in anxiety. So I got up, I calmly closed my book, and I just went outside into our courtyard, and I just remember looking up at the sky. It was October, so it was very gray, and I pulled out my phone and very calmly called my mom, and with tears streaming down my face, I told her that I had to come home. And I just remember apologizing like over and over and over again, because I knew what a huge opportunity I was giving up to get this world-class education and to get it for free and to be the first in my family to go to college, and I just couldn't hack it. And so I felt really torn, but I also knew what felt very true at the time was just like, I can't survive here without them. And if you ask my mom today, this is still like the worst call she's ever gotten. But so we agreed that I would wait until Christmas and then we would reassess. And honestly, there was something about knowing that my time on campus was going to be limited that made me feel really free. Like anything bad could happen and I would just be like, whatever, I'm leaving, doesn't matter. And so in order to fill the rest of my time there, I started volunteering at an after-school program called By the Hand in Chicago's South Side in Inglewood. And from the moment that I arrived at the school, I felt this immediate sense of belonging that I hadn't felt when I showed up on campus. And I was placed in a classroom of fourth graders, and the first student that I met, her name is Tamia, and we just had the best time. And I remember before I left, she said, "Miss Becca, lots of people come here, but usually they don't come back. So will you be back?" And I said yes, and I kept my promise week after week after week. And eventually, By the Hand and the students there, they felt less like a chore or less like something to do to check off or even like a community service project. They really became my family. And it became more about being there for Tamia and keeping my promise, being able to play basketball with Isaac, being able to help Kayla excel in reading. And I loved it. And it didn't feel like an obligation anymore. And so By the Hand is where I learned that family doesn't just have to be the family that I inherit. It gets to be one that I can build. So when Christmas came around, my parents asked me if I was ready to come home, and I surprised them and myself by saying no, that I would come back. So I did. And next month, on September 21st, I will be celebrating 10 years in Chicago. Thank you. Don't ask me how many parking tickets I've gotten in that time. But yeah, thank you. But in those 10 years, I have dedicated my studies and my career to the pursuit of education equity for students like my students at By the Hand, and students like myself. And all the while, I've been building a new family. And so I suppose now, 10 years later, if you were to ask me to rewrite my application that I did for U Chicago, I would still talk about family, but I think it wouldn't be as limited, and it would be mostly about the things that I've learned from the small families that I've built along the way. So I would say that I got my joy from my students at By the Hand and the students that I worked with at Chicago Hope Academy. I learned my curiosity from my peers at U Chicago. I learned my generosity from my friends at Oasis Church Chicago, and my deep sense of equity from my team and the students that we work with at Braven. And I learned my love of storytelling from all of you, from being in communities like this who show up, who sit, who listen, and who honor the importance of sharing our stories. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful, Becca. That was great. Well, truly, this community of storytelling is key, because I met Becca through one of her colleagues at Braven, Lauren Key, who's here tonight, who's a wonderful member of the Chicago storytelling community. And she told a story here for Is This a Thing? And then she introduced me to Becca. And when Becca and I first talked, she told me that she just finished taking a storytelling class at the University of Chicago. So we both had the same reaction. This was just meant to be. So thank you so much, Becca. It was beautiful. Our next storyteller is Joanne Telser-Freer. Joanne is a dynamic Chicago native with an insatiable thirst for adventure and a passion for literacy. She's traveled the globe, living abroad for over 30 years in France, Qatar, Egypt, and Pakistan. She speaks fluent French while dabbling in Arabic. With a rich career in education, media, and public speaking, Joanne now leads literacy initiatives as the Director of Program Development at Literacy Chicago. She oversees a team of 150 volunteers and indulges in her love for acting and storytelling and reading. Joanne has recently added author to her very impressive list of accomplishments with her book, 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Teaching Adults to Read. She has copies here if anyone wants to buy that. Joanne, come join us.
Thank you so much, Susie. I'd like to say Susie has volunteered for Literacy Chicago. I'm really excited. She helped us innovate a class, Learn to Read Through Theater, and it was very successful, and we're still doing it, Susie. And we wish you'd come back. My story is called Hassan and Me. Just over a year ago, Hassan walked into my office at Literacy Chicago. I greeted him in French and Arabic, two of the many languages he speaks, and his face broke out in a huge smile. With joy, he grabbed me and gave me a hug. No one had spoken to him in his own language for weeks, and he was struggling to understand English, Chicago, and the American way of life. The connection was immediately, and I didn't know how our relationship would change both of our lives. Hassan is from Mauritania. Enslavement still exists in Mauritania, although it is officially banned. Hassan's father was enslaved. I too was shocked to learn this just before meeting Hassan. He was referred to Literacy Chicago by our partner, Unite Here Chicago Hospitality Institute, to learn English while awaiting his working papers and his asylum papers so he could join the school. The goal was for Hassan to learn English so that when his paperwork came through, he could join this amazing culinary institute. The spark to make the journey to America or to the United States began with an encounter between Hassan and Che Smith in 2017. 4,700 miles away as the bird flies. Hassan didn't fly here, and I'll tell you how he got here in a minute. Does anyone know who Che Smith is? Che is no ordinary man. Known as Rhymefest to the world, he is a multi-Grammy and Academy Award-winning artist. To me, he is Che Smith, an active and committed member of the Chicago-based organization Abolition Institute, which is focused on ending enslavement in Mauritania. On a trip there in 2017, Hassan met Che. As Che explains it, not having a common language, they weren't able to talk to each other. However, something beautiful and magical happened, and they communicated in a nonverbal, very emotional way. Hassan wanted to know how to get to America, and Che said, from here in the desert, you can walk. What he wanted to say was that if you begin a journey with one step, you can get to wherever you wanted to go. He never thought that Hassan would take it literally. And thus began Hassan's journey, mostly on foot, across 11 countries. He was sometimes alone, sometimes with people. He encountered poverty, cartels, violence, death, and hope. In that hope, he never gave up. Hassan does not give up. And that is one of the most inspiring things about him. Somehow, and I'm not exactly sure how, Hassan ended up in California. And Sean from the Abolition Institute arranged a flight for him to Chicago. Sean picked up Hassan at O'Hare and told him he was taking him to his new home. Hassan had no idea where that would be. They stopped at a White Castle for Hassan's first taste of America. What do you think about that? Hassan is here tonight. Che and his wife Heather were at home one day when the doorbell rang. Hassan, holding a bag from White Castle, said in broken English, "Brother," this is how he said it with his French accent, "Brother, this delicious." Their 27 love was instantly rekindled, replacing their initial shock. Che and Heather welcomed him and invited him to live in their home as part of the family. And as Becca said, and it gave me the shivers, family can be all around you. Doesn't have to be original one. Hassan started working with a tutor at Literacy Chicago for an hour, Mondays through Thursdays last summer. One day, after a few weeks, I noticed he looked unhappy. And I asked him what was wrong. Although he was happy living with Che and Heather and the family, he was feeling depressed and lonely during the day because he was alone. He wanted to start working, but I told him I thought it was too risky because if he would get caught, he'd get sent back to Mauritania. I felt sad, though, because I, too, have lived in foreign countries, and I know how isolating it can be, especially when you can't understand the language. Then, I have to brag here, I had my brilliant idea. At our office in the West Loop, we offer reading classes to American adults whose reading levels are very low. And by the way, I put some papers around here tonight because maybe you don't know that 1 in 5 adults in the United States cannot read past 2nd to 3rd grade. That's approximately 48 million people in our first world country. Not a third world country. Anyway, if you're interested, come see me later. I'll tell you, I can talk about that all night. Anyhow, back to my brilliant solution for Hassan. I did something I had never done before and never even thought of doing. Without asking our executive director, who's also sitting over there, Rich Dominguez, I invited Hassan to join our adult literacy classes. I knew he could read, but he wanted English. And I said, you up for it? And here's what happened. Our students, who are mostly African American, were thrilled to meet a real African. And they showered Hassan with questions about Mauritania, a country they had never even heard of before. There was instant affinity, and Hassan has told me about how helpful they have been, both in and out of class. They took him shopping downtown Chicago, encouraged him, gave him psychological support and love, and helped him with English when he couldn't understand the language. It was so exciting to see our reading students turn into English teachers. Hassan enjoyed the classes, learning about American history, culture, and about Chicago. His English improved quickly. In fact, in over 30 years of teaching English, I've never seen anyone learn so fast. A few weeks ago, Hassan walked into my office with a smile on his face. He proudly showed me his employment authorization. Overcome by emotion, we cried and hugged. We do a lot of hugging at Literacy Chicago, by the way. I reached out to our partners at the Culinary Institute with joy, and Hassan has started the application process. In addition, he has been trying to organize fellow Mauritanians into a community in Chicago, and I heard through the grapevine that he was just elected vice president of this organization because he didn't want to be president. One of his main goals for this community is to learn English, of course, at Literacy Chicago. So that's the next step. When I saw my beloved students embracing Hassan, I knew my idea had worked. Che and Hassan had become part of the Literacy Chicago family. This is what makes my work worthwhile, seeing adults grow and change through communication, education, and love. Don't forget the love. It is so important. I told you that these two men, Hassan and Che, had changed my life. Today I have the honor of calling both of them my friends. Hassan, with his determination to reach his goals, inspires me and reminds me, when you take that first step in your walk, you start your journey to a new adventure. Hassan, can you come here for a sec? Can he come up here for 1 sec? Sure. Just to applaud him. Just for 1 sec. I'm just going to go give him another hug.
I want to hug.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love Literacy Chicago. Joanne, the teacher, he changed something in my life. I love Literacy Chicago and I love Chicago.
Oh, that was magnificent. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Hassan. How beautiful. Oh, that was just great. Joanne is one of those people that when you meet her and you learn about her background, you can't imagine her doing anything other than exactly what she's doing. And what I'm loving is already 3 stories in, the themes of family and education and learning are just coming through, and they are transformative, absolutely transformative. So thank you both so much. That was lovely. I want to do a quick little shout out. I did have this wonderful opportunity to design a course using storytelling at Literacy Chicago, and my assistant, who was absolutely beloved by the students, is here. Mom, could you give a wave? My mother came with me every week, and it was an extraordinary experience. So, all right. We have one more storyteller, and then we're going to take a little break. But first, I am thrilled to introduce everyone to Christopher Edmond. Chris is part of the Ready Chicago program. Oh, you're gonna clap. Ready introduced Christopher to HHP Lift, and that is how I met Chris and invited him to be here tonight. So let me just tell you about these 2 organizations and how they work together to make a big difference here in Chicago. Ready Chicago, and that's READI. Ready Chicago is a gun violence intervention outreach program. Ready's goal is to help men in the highest risk neighborhoods by engaging with them in supported job and cognitive behavioral programming. Through Ready, Chris is currently part of HHP Lift's LiftWorks program. There will be a quiz at the end. This is in the program about Lift. LiftWorks program creates quality jobs for the people who are affected by gun violence, poverty, and other barriers to employment. When first talking about tonight's theme, Burden of Destiny, with Chris, his connection to it was immediate, and he said, "My burden is my past." His past continues to make finding a job seem impossible. There have been many times Chris wanted to give up and return to the streets, but he's sticking with it. He's here tonight because he has a story to tell us, and we welcome you. Come up.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Edmond, and I would like to take the time to say thank you all for coming here. Everybody made it on time, so that is a plus. Big shoulders, and now we are talking about Burden of Destiny. Again, today is August 12th, and today is actually a big day for me, you know. I've been looking forward to this day to speak to some people that I don't know about, to let you guys know this is my first time being in front of a lot of people speaking. It's not the easiest, and it's really not too hard neither, so hopefully y'all can hopefully I can encourage some more people, you know, to do these things. But okay, I'll start. My destiny. I was a first-time felon. At the peak of my life, I was arrested, incarcerated for 4 years. I remember looking around in jail, recognizing the people around me in that jail. It felt familiar, but I had never been here before. I had this feeling of deja vu. I was supposed to be here, yet it felt like jail was definitely my destiny. Like it was supposed to happen, that this was unavoidable and inevitable, that I would follow in my father's footsteps, a father that I barely knew and barely saw growing up. My mom had tried to stop me from following my dad. She kept me away from my dad, who was locked up majority of my life. I asked him recently, how long have you been arrested? And he asked me a question right back. He said, how old are you? Exactly. That was my response, you know what I'm saying? So, my mom, I guess she felt it or had the intuition that I was too much like my dad, and I felt that growing up, but I didn't understand it at the time, and she did a great job. So the mistakes that I have made, those are mistakes that I have followed on my own conclusion and not taking the lessons that my mom was trying to give me, you guys, okay? So I didn't get in trouble until after I graduated from high school, and me and my mom had sat down and we talked, and I told her that I was gonna move out her house when I was 18 years old. I thought I was ready before I even got to 18. I told her, when I turn 18, you ain't gotta put me out, Mom. Guess what? I'm gonna move out. I wasn't ready for that. And then, after that, a lot of trouble found me. Maybe the generation pull was too strong to fight, but I did fight it. I was on the right path to a future that I wanted and was working for. I went to college. I was going to Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois. I did not see this as my path to end up in jail while I was there, but situation had happened. When I think about it, here's the irony. I had only seen prison for myself once or twice, and that was going to go visit my dad while he was there. And I remember thinking when I first got to school, this dorm, this campus, feels like something I've seen before. Seems like prison. Sure, we had freedom, but the confined campus, having a roommate in a small place, there were curfews, check-ins, lots of rules. There was parents, but there was someone in charge who had authority over us, even if they was just a year older. My burden. I didn't know from a young age that I was already inheriting my father's pain, even though my mother tried to stop that from happening, but it happened anyways. The generational trauma was my burden to bear. I had to grow up fast, maybe too fast. From the age of 5, I started helping out with the siblings that my mother had around the house. So when my mom was looking for me, I stayed focused. I graduated high school, got into college. I was a finance major at NIU and had planned to be a financial advisor. And to make money, I'm a barber, so I love to cut hair. That's my passion. I was pretty good, still is pretty good, and still working on my craft as well. I got to college and I worked hard. I had friends. I was a role model for my stepbrother, who had to come to school and study and join the school as well with me. I was doing okay and having a good time too. My roommate and I was throwing parties in our place, always free until my friends decided to charge to make some cash, and then things went sideways. It began with me getting hassled by a gun with this guy that had a gun at my party. He wanted to get into the party, I guess, for free. But I made a conscious decision to ignore the guy with the gun and the stupidity that would come moving forward. This choice came directly for what I had was learning in African American history class. I wanted to prevent becoming the black on black crime statistics. I managed to avoid the guy for a year straight until I ran into him in a club downtown DeKalb, and that was the day that he pulled his gun out and shot at me. He was bullying me and bullying other people around the campus, so he had things against me that I didn't know what it was about. He had pulled his gun out and shot at me, right? I'm thinking, what is it that I had did to you? I didn't deserve this. I don't know you at all. I didn't steal from you. I don't even know your girlfriend. So what is this about? You know what I'm saying? But, you know, he knew exactly where I lived and knew a lot about me. So how could I do nothing? at all. That's when I became enraged, blacked out, furious, and I got arrested for beating him. I wouldn't be alive today if I had avoided this, and now here it was. I wish I could have followed through with what I intended, to not become a statistic, to not end up where my father did. It crushed my aspirations, my inspiration. What made it worse, it scared my brothers, and to follow into my step, which is to go to school, college, and enjoy life. And he didn't want to go to class anymore. So I had wanted to protect my brother and motivate him to that we could continue, studying. I wanted to be a rightful leader, but I ended up getting arrested for beating a guy. I had to explain to my mom this wasn't her doing. After this incident, the gates were open. My first felony was not my last. Reclaiming my destiny. When my son turned 5, I made a decision to prevent him from inheriting what I did from my dad. I wanted to be there for him like I wish my dad had been there for me, before the memories of me in prison sticks in my mind. I wanted to make sure that my son's future was his own, and that he would not bear the burden of the generation before him. Today, I'm using my background, my trade, being a barber, to take care of my family, my son. I'm working to take control of my future, even though, truth be told, my past gets in the way of me finding work, but I'm not giving up. I'm now in my son's life. He's 9. I see him every day. I coach him in wrestling, football, boxing, encourage him on different books to read. Whatever he want to do, I'm really my son's #1 fan. I encourage and motivate him to do it all. I'm a good father. I'm encouraging him to be better than me. That's his whole theme, is that I'm going to be better than you. And I say, yeah, that's right, be better than me. So the generation curse will come to an end. I found a program like Radiant Lift that has helped me come together with this transition in my mind that I need to go ahead and make, and take the time that everything would be okay. That was something that I didn't understand actually coming from my mom, so I actually appreciate you guys, everybody, that believe in me and just motivated me to be on the positive side of things, because truth be told, I experienced the negative side, and that side there is terrible, you guys. I wouldn't wish that on nobody at all. And I'd like to take the time to express one thing that happened when my son was 5 years old, where I had to look at things a lot different. It was on Father's Day. Father's Day, probably about 4 years ago, I got pulled over. No, I didn't get pulled over. What happened was I had a blowout. My tire blew out and the state trooper pulled up behind me. When the state trooper pulled up behind and got to approach my car, he opened my car door immediately. Now, this was around the time that a lot of officers was killing people, and they was getting away with it. So luckily, when I stopped, that I had my door locked and I had my son with me. They broke the window, the passenger window, to pull me outside the car, and all I kept doing was hollering was, "Please don't kill me, don't kill me." I actually, at that moment, before they actually got to breaking the window, I called the dispatch and asked them, "Do you guys have state troopers here? Let them know that I have a tow truck on the way, and my son's that backyard. They came to my car too aggressive. Can you calm them down and let them know to wait on my tow truck?" That didn't happen. So letting my son experience that and seeing that and thought that he was able to help me, I had to figure out something. I got to make a change, and I shouldn't have even had him in that position, but I was drinking, and that's something that I don't do. It was Father's Day, and I thought it was the time for me to take him out so that we could enjoy the Father's Day picnic with all the other fathers and their sons and kids and stuff like that. It was a decision that I made, and I'm learning to understand that life is about choices. And the choice that we make has consequences, good or bad. Thank you.
Oh man, thank you, Chris. That was amazing. Chris was telling me about his son Bishop, and for a minute he thought maybe he'd be here tonight, and he said, could he come up with me when I tell my story? I want him to hear my story, and in fact, that stool is for him. He wasn't able to make it, but when I said, is he going to be comfortable in front of all these people? And Chris said, wait a sec, and he plays me this video. His son is speaking in front of a crowd. I couldn't quite see the crowd, but I'm thinking it's like at least 2, 3, 4 times the size of this one. I'm just kidding. But he was in front of some school event, and he just was so awesome and so natural. And I'm like, watch out, because it runs in the family to take the mic and to take control of the room with such incredible story and incredible voice. So thank you so much, Christopher. All right. Let's take a short break. Bathroom is out that door to the left, and there's a little tiny bathroom over there, and drinks. Take care of your servers and order more food and drink, and we'll see you in about 5-10 minutes. All right, everybody, we should get started. We have 4 more amazing stories to hear tonight. So I think the room has maybe thinned out a little bit, so please get situated. Let's get ready for our next 4. I really just cannot thank you all enough for being here. Can we hear it for the first half of the show? Really beautiful. And the themes that are coming through are just going to continue. I want to take this opportunity to say a couple things. One, I really want to thank O'Shaughnessy's. O'Shaughnessy's lets us perform here every month with Is This a Thing? And tonight with Big Shoulder Stories. I think you can tell that the wait staff and the management are working their butts off tonight. So please remember to take care of them. And another reminder that the QR code on the program, if you'd consider making a donation, $10 or more would be great, because to be able to pay our tellers tonight for the hard work that they've done representing these amazing organizations, we should all feel really, really good about that. So please, it takes a second. Venmo's so much fun, especially when you receive it. It's awesome. So thank you all for who have given, and I appreciate it. All right, are we ready for the second half? All right, guys, get ready. I met our next storyteller, Ortez Owens, also through HHP Lift, where, like Christopher, through Ready Chicago, Ortez is a participant in HHP Lift's Lift Works program. So at Lift, they are receiving paid training in so many areas, including production, graphic design, laser etching, and warehouse management. They are also offered healthy meals and yoga classes. It's really an amazingly cool program. Plus, you can shop at HHP Lift and feel so good about what you're buying, because the stuff is not only gorgeous, it is sustainably made and produced, and I think they got about 30 people here, and I think so please check out, go up to their website, and just spend money tonight, people. Just spend money. That's the bottom line. All right. In the very first moment of meeting Ortez and talking about sharing a story, he asked, so can I sing it? I'm like, can you? And I said, of course you can. And that's when I learned Ortez's artist name is Donnie Money. So yeah. You can find The Real Donnie Money on Instagram and Donnie Money Gaming on YouTube. This guy's for real. And now I'd love for Ortez, Donnie Money, to come up here to the mic.
Hey, how y'all doing? Okay. My name is Ortez, known as I go by Donnie Money, you know. Like, I'm good at storytelling. Like, I do the storytelling, but I feel better, like, for my story, like, with words. Like, not with words, like, with music. Like, with tones, with melody. So it's like, you could hear my story, but you could feel with the melody, my words, the way I'm saying it, like it's in poetry, So let me go and get into it. Let y'all know, because this story is about me, and it's like me talking to the young boys about how greater we could be and how much more that we could give if we just put our all to it, So you can stop.
If we was rich, probably take the boat. Gave them all a gas so I could board the yacht. Gave them all a half for a better path. I'm standing right here, I'll let you do the math.
Y'all ain't gotta be shouting out y'all head. You ain't gotta be shouting out y'all head. You tell them this a little bit. Go. If I could sing like that, I'd probably get a ring right back. And as I write this track, let's take a trip back to my past. To see a youngster who was hungry, chasing the dream he overcoming, chasing the dream he really wanted. It's like this, y'all.
You really want it.
Street dreams turn to nightmares. You go down the path and see it's right there. You wanna be different, but you slight scared. Cause the coolers and shooters ain't got on Nike Airs. Trying hard to make it, but I'm still here. So hard to make it. See these real tears with a heart of a lion. I got no fears. So many been dying, why am I still here? See, I'm thinking life goes on. Lost time from pouting, I gotta stay strong. Lost time to prison, I gotta move on. Put my feelings in rap, another sad song. Put my heart in these streets, another jail call. See my path been steady, I pray I don't fall. A little shaky but ready, I gotta stand tall. See my kids, my passion, how much I love y'all. Whoever knew that pride to get the best of us. Rest in peace to the guys who fought for better structure. Head high, be a man, don't let your feelings in. Head high, focus man, baby, you born to win. Head high when I'm low, little bro, we chasing growth. You the best, you the fruit, you just wanna let you know. Turn lessons to blessings, I wanna take the oath. I see the changes already, just wanna let you know. See I'm ready, been struggling too long, this burden heavy. Been looking for love, now I'm married, where you at? I keep getting old, got a parent. So glad they hating the way I growed up. Some was with me but envy the way I stood up. I've been down to my lowest, I couldn't look up. Been down so low, can only look up. So patient, but I've been waiting. Still playing same situation. Say woke, never take no. You down in that water, little bro, you better float. If we was rich, probably take the boat. Gave him what I got so I could board the yacht. Gave him all I had for a better path. I'm standing right here, I'll let you do the math. Whoever knew that pride to get the best of us. Rest in peace to the guys who fought for better structure. Head high, be a man, don't let your feelings in. Head high, focus man, baby, you born to win. Head high when I'm low, little bro, we chasing growth. You the best, you the fruit, you just wanna let you know. Turn lessons to blessings, I wanna take the oath. I see the changes already, just wanna let you know.
Head high, focus man, baby, you born to win. Head high when I'm low, little bro, we chasing growth. You the best, you the fruit, you just wanna let you know. Turn lessons to blessings, I wanna take the oath.
I will. I've been writing. Appreciate it. Well, a little bit of my story is though. See, I had to write it down. See, y'all got to bear with me. So, I've been writing music since I was 11. My cousin had a studio. I used to go there to be with him. I like hearing my voice. Writing was a second nature to me. So when I was growing up and things was throwing me off, I was writing and I kept rapping to keep me sane. That's how I express myself. I don't have a lot of people I could talk to. I didn't want nobody to judge me, but to know me is through my music, my words. And my writing performance has got me places. It helped me through my incarceration. My wife today, she understands me through my music. I share my passion with my kids. Why does music tell my story? My story that I'm a survivor, that I have nothing to say and say it through my creative expression. And that people who love me will know me through my words and my music. Thank you.
That was amazing. Ortez, thank you. Donnie Money, woo! And to his family. You guys are amazing. There are so many unbelievable lines and words and phrasing in what he did. I had to print it out, of course. But, street dreams turn to nightmares. I'm still here, so hard to make it. I gotta move, putting my feelings in rap, another sad song. I mean, just, Oh, God, that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Artez. That was phenomenal. You know, Rebecca said it there's so many different ways to tell a story, and through song, what could be more powerful? All right. I know. Following that. Well, we have a pro. Next up is Susan Rohde. Susan has been telling story on stages for just a few years, but she, in those few years, has had so much success and enjoyed 4 Moth Story Slam wins. Susan works in higher education and enjoys the opportunity to help young people reach their academic goals. She also co-produces Tellers Night in Forest Park in partnership with the Forest Park Arts Alliance. She's a proud graduate of Northwestern, go Cats, and follows their football team. Her wonderfully blended family keeps her busy and brings her great joy, and so does storytelling. So please come on up, Susan.
It was a spectacular August evening. The air had cooled and there was low humidity and a beautiful breeze, and it was just way too nice of an evening to stay home. So I grabbed my then 9-year-old son for an impromptu low expectations evening at Kittyland. Now, a low expectation evening means 3 or 4 rides, slice of pizza, home by 8 o'clock. So we were just coming off the tilt-a-whirl. I was already a little disoriented, but I noticed all this commotion going on, primarily around my son Danny, and people were like picking him up and hugging and laughing and crying, and I was speechless. And finally, the spokeswoman for it was this large Hispanic family around my son. And finally, the spokeswoman for the family, Aunt Carrie, Titi Gotti, introduced herself and explained that she was Danny's long-lost aunt. And she went on to explain that when Danny's dad was shot and killed, Mom took off with the kids and she never knew what happened to them. And she was so excited to reunite with him and was talking about all the abuelas and titis and cousins who wanted to come over and visit, and he could wait. I was like, stop. I swear I had no words to explain what I was feeling. So God gave me the words that I needed. Well, I'm sorry, I gotta go back a second. I was not by any means feeling her excitement. Danny was our first foster child, and our plan was to adopt him. That was always the plan. The agency had picked him out for us because he was in a category of foster children called likely eligible for adoption, meaning that he wasn't at that point, but the courts were moving in that direction, and the plan was, it was crystal clear. He would live with us for a year, parental rights would be terminated, we could adopt him, and live happily ever after. That was the plan. Titi Gotti was never part of the plan. So God did give me the words that I needed, and I said, I'm not going to interfere with Danny seeing his biological family if that's what's good for him. But he's a foster child, so I need you to get a hold of the agency and do whatever they want you to do before there's going to be any visits. And she's like, oh, that's fine. And she's hugging me and she's hugging Danny. I'm like, Jesus God. So you can imagine the next day I called the agency. I was beside myself. And she said, you know what, don't worry about it. When biological family realizes they have to do background checks, fingerprinting, they are not going to follow through. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. Oh my God, I swear within 2 weeks, the entire family, and I'm talking about 3% of Humboldt Park, was fingerprinted, background checked, ready to visit. So we invited them to our house, which probably sounds goofy, but my husband and I were trying to control any part of this that we could. So they came over, and honestly, there was abuelas and titis and cousins. I don't know how to say cousins in Spanish. And even Danny's biological brother and sister were there. And quite honestly, it was one of the most beautiful days of my life. It was so obvious that they adored Danny and that he adored them. And I was so happy for them, but I didn't know a lot about foster care at the time. But I knew the judges would always go with biological family as opposed to this goofy suburban white couple who thought they could raise a Puerto Rican kid from Humboldt Park. So I was so sad, but I wanted what was best for Danny. So they were getting ready to leave, and I was saying goodbye, and Titi Gotti walked over and said, I will always respect you as Danny's parents. You so obviously love him, and I would very much like to be a part of his life, but you will always be his mom. Oh, so I hugged her this time, and Danny is 33 now, and we have remained very, very close with Titi Gotti and her family. I've watched her kids grow up. She was so good to our kids. This is a whole different story, but within a couple years, we took his brother and sister into our home as well. So we had this whole little Puerto Rican vibe going on out in Forest Park. But boy, talk about destiny, and rather than a burden, what a blessing. I do a lot of storytelling, and I like to talk about foster kids because I want to get the word out. Foster care is not for everybody, and you can't dabble in it. So, but there are so many other ways to get involved. I guess that's the message. There is such a need for mentors, for respite workers, to take my kids for the weekend and give me a break. Those are the kind of workers, and I know I'm not advocating that you take my kids. No, I'm just saying that's what a respite worker does. So fortunately, I have someone who takes the kids for the weekend. And there's also something called CASA workers, court-appointed special advocates, who make sure these kids are protected and their rights are being respected. So if your heart is open to it, there is such a tremendous need. And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Susan. Susan really has become known as one of the more seasoned storytellers here in Chicago, and to use this platform to share her commitment and passion and advocacy for forest park care, foster care, and to do it so meaningfully. So I hope some of you will follow up and ask Susan some questions. You never know. Thank you. It's beautiful. Next up is Nadia Barnett. Nadia has a few fans here. Nadia joined Nourishing Hope Chicago, formerly Lakeview Pantry, in February 2022 as the organization's first program expansion manager. She joined from her own nonprofit, Village Minds, which she started in 2020 to support low-income families in the wake of the pandemic and civil unrest in communities that were already struggling. Nadia was named a Nourishing Hope Feeding Hope honoree in 2021, and she soon after jumped at the opportunity to join Nourishing Hope family as a full-time employee. In her spare time, the proud mother of 3 enjoys crafting, spending time with loved ones, and enjoying our beautiful city. Nadia, there you are.
Thank you, everybody. I got a cool squad because they know I'm nervous. They trying to hype me up. I love y'all. All right, I'm a little blind. I need a light. All right. Ooh, shoot. Oh, God. All right, everybody. So before I tell you how I got here, I have to tell you who I am. Can I put this down a little bit? I am the great-granddaughter of Ardessa Cannon, an extraordinary woman who fed a huge family and most of the community, and a lot of it came out of her backyard. See, she propelled us. She was our fuel. I am the granddaughter of Robbie Edwards, a tiny little woman with the sweetest voice. And people would come to her and share their fears and their trials, and somehow, with that tiny little voice, she would motivate them to do better and be better. She had finesse. I am the daughter of Tony Barnett, another tiny little lady, but she was loud. She was a fierce advocate for people, especially veterans. See, her big mouth prompted big changes. And I'm the daughter of Nathan Barnett, my dad. See, they call him the Black MacGyver because he used whatever resources he had to accomplish his goal. Like one time he fixed my toilet with a butter knife, no lie. So, how did I get here? Well, it's simple. I'm nosy, and God says so. So during the George Floyd riots, me and my sister decided we wanted to walk around the community and see, what the impact of the looting was. And we realized very quickly that everything was destroyed. So we started to ask ourselves, what are people gonna do who need food? What about people who need medicine? Where are they gonna go? So as we were walking, we came upon the WIC store. Now, if you don't know what the WIC store is, that's women, infants, and children. That's a store that gives free supplementals to pregnant women or women with small children like milk, cheese, baby formula. Now, I was briefly on WIC as a teen mother, and I remember giving my son his last formula on the last day of the month because I knew on the 1st, I can go get more from the WIC store. Well, it was May 31st, and I knew somebody was gonna give their baby the last of their milk because they thought they could get more the next day. So my walk prompted me to go on Facebook Live. Now, I have to be honest, I love Facebook Live. I wanted to be an actress, and that's about as big as my screen gonna get. So I'm always on Facebook Live. But I got on Facebook Live, and I'm like, somebody should do something. Somebody should create a page for us to share info. And you know how you can see people commenting while you're talking? Well, my classmate, Katie King, was like, you should do it. All you gotta do is ABC. And I was like, nah, but I'll support whoever does do it. So later on that night, my friend Richard showed up to my door and he had 100 bottles of water based on what I said on my Facebook Live, so I knew people were listening. The very next day, I saw a post on Facebook, black background, big white letters, and it said, does anybody know where I can get milk for my baby? I knew it. I knew it. So I created the page. I called it Village Minds, and it grew really quickly. People shared info and resources and requested help. So one day there was a post about coming to help black businesses clean up. I went, but somehow we ended up in a Jewel parking lot. So while we're in the Jewel parking lot, this little old lady was shuffling across, and I saw people go up to her, they talked to her, they turned her away. Well, she was 81 years old, and she thought she was about to go grocery shopping. No. So as I was leaving, a car pulled up to me, and there was another senior lady, and she said, "What's happening over here?" I said, "Well, the store's destroyed. There's nothing left. It's done." And she said, "Well, where can I go get food?" And I said, "I don't know." And it broke my heart to say those words to her. So after a series of events, I decided to go back on Facebook Live. And I said, okay, here's the plan. We're going to help seniors. Who wants to help me? This is what we're going to do. We're going to get groceries. We're going to take them to the seniors. I just need you to send me some money, and we can get this done. So in a very short time, I had $5,000 donated mostly by Whitney Young Dolphins, and I just got to say, you should have been a dolphin, all right? And then people started reaching out and saying, well, how can I help? So Carolyn and Idelia got like logistical info. Rita made phone calls. Tanisha helped with social media and helped acquire food for distribution. My old company, Davy Tree, said I could use the garage. My coworker, Rogelio, cleaned it for me. My friend Danielle got us produce and hot food. Jared Anderson from Mariano said I could purchase in bulk. My Uncle Chucky hooked me up with Lou from Premier Produce. And then my family and friends kicked in. Cecilia, Monique, Tim, Tanika, Eric and his kids, Keon, my brother Julian, Kelly, Kisha, Shine, Herman, Reggie, Marjorie, Dina, what? Quentin, Kanisha, Veronica, Mama Robin, my sister Robbie, my nephew Tony back there, my 3 amazing children, Nathan, Zion, and Tania, they all agreed to volunteer. They all agreed to sort and glean, and then we went on to deliver groceries. On our very first distribution, we delivered groceries to 462 seniors. I was happy. I was full. I sat on the curb and I cried and I thought, okay, we did it. We did something good. And as I was sitting there, I received a phone call from Miss Peacher. And she was like, baby, I just want to call you and tell you I want to thank you so much for what you've done. This is so special for us seniors. And I said, well, I just wanted to help because I know the stores are closed and it's hard to get food. She said, oh, no, baby, we needed this before that. So we kept doing it every other weekend for several months. And then I got tired. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I think I'm through. Well, then I got another phone call after a distribution. And she said, oh, girl, I want to call you and tell you thank you for those peaches. Those peaches were so good, we never left the courtyard. We all sat down and we ate those peaches. They never made it upstairs because, see, we've been eating bad food for so long, we forgot what good food tastes like. I said, okay, I guess I'm not tired, God. I keep going, but I need help. So I reached out to a couple dolphins. I reached out to Taryn. Taryn made it possible for us to be aligned with people who moved us and propelled us in a further direction. See, she was the fuel. And then it was Ethel, an amazing writer. She was the wordsmith. She gave me the words to say in the interviews and the questions. And so she had the finesse. And then it was me, the big mouth in the street, using the resources that I had to accomplish the goal. So what'd you say about destiny? Well, the 3 of us became Village Minds non-for-profit, and we fed people. And we had the support of a huge law firm, Much Shell's. Well, it's kind of small, but it's huge in heart. And because of them, we met Kelly O'Connell, then the CEO of Lakeview Pantry, and she said, we want to support you. So then we partnered with them. And by partnering with them, I was able to partner with other organizations like the Hermitage Community Garden and Miss Cordia Pugh. And then Tamara and Archie Matlock let me use their church, St. Mary's, as a distribution site. So we went from picking up food in my car to picking up food in a U-Haul to hiring a company with semi-trucks to pick up our food. And we did it for 2 years. Okay, y'all clapping, but I think it's absolutely crazy because, see, what I haven't told you is that I did not plan this for my life. See, right now I'm supposed to be somewhere nice and warm, smoking cigars, flirting with young men, bouncing from place to place, see. But the series of events ignited what was already in me, my destiny. I had a responsibility to help because I am the great-granddaughter of Ardessa Cannon. I am the granddaughter of Robbie Edwards, and I am the daughter of Tony and Nathan Barnett. So now I get to work the job I never knew I wanted. I am Nadia Barnett, the Program Expansion Manager at Nourishing Hope. We feed thousands of people every month, and I still get to be nosy and help people at the same time because God says so. Thank you.
So that's what happens when you start with, somebody should do something. Nadia, that was amazing. Nadia was destined to tell her story tonight because her name came to me in multiple ways. So she really had no choice. Even though she's one of those people who does 26 hours of living in 24, I don't know how she does it. She's an inspiration, and I'm really glad that she got to share her story with all of us. Yeah. Thank you, Nadia. And thank you to all the people here supporting her. You're not going to believe it, you guys, but we're at our last storyteller. I know. You guys have all been amazing. Oh, gosh, here we go. Anaviel Jones is an educator, criminal justice reform advocate, and paralegal. At the age of 20, Jones was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. While in prison, he transformed his life, dedicating his time to pursue higher education and his spiritual resurrection. The journey ultimately led him to a world he never knew before. He would eventually embrace another name, becoming Anaviel Ben, I'm going to mess this up, Rakemayahu? Thank you. That's Anaviel over there. Growing up to become a respected leader amongst his incarcerated peers. He also earned his paralegal certification, 2 college degrees, and became certified by the Illinois Department of Health as a peer health educator and a peer mentor. I am thrilled to welcome Anaviel up here to close out our show.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? It's great to be here. Actually, I'm going to just go into this. I know it's getting late, and I haven't been able to drink yet because I didn't want to mess this up. So, all right. I had a sentence of natural life plus 30 years. My destiny was to die in prison. When I was released, no one expected me to seek work and stay in the same space of criminal justice. You know, everybody thought I would do something else, spend so much time in prison. But I had a passion for it, a calling. I was drawn to this work. Maybe this was my burden of destiny, I thought. While I was in prison, I got an education that was not typically allowed for those with long-term sentences like mine. A lot of people were thinking, what would be the point? Was the thinking of those in charge where, we're never letting you out, so why should we educate you? And the way I started on this path to learning was not typical, nor was it particularly positive. At first, I had been asked to join a program that my counselor was teaching others. I was going to be his assistant. As his assistant, I was going to be in all of the classes. I was learning, I was developing a love for learning while I was sitting in here. But being his assistant also meant that I was to serve a role of a cautionary tale to all the other students. Don't end up like him. This counselor actually wasn't really a bad guy. He was just misguided. His name was Charles. He was a colorful person. He liked to shock the people who were telling these crazy stories and created colorful discussions. Sometimes they went too far, but I understood what he was trying to do, even if it could have been done a little bit different. He didn't mean any harm. I was one of his tools of visual aid. He reminded me actually of George Bush, the one that Kanye West said doesn't like black people. That one. He had a slight Texas drawl. He even looked like George Bush. And we were in the South, and he rubbed some of the people the wrong way in this class. People wondered how I would take it. How could you keep coming to this class, taking this, coming back every day and taking this? But I endured it then. But it turned out there was a purpose for that. It was not only humiliating, it was almost like I wasn't real, like I was a prop, talking about me as if I had no feelings. He didn't even care either. Imagine for someone to proclaim something about you that you have no power over. I endured that, and ultimately, it did allow me a lot of opportunities. People would see me after class and talk about me when they're walking back to their units and would say, you see that guy over there? He's never getting out of prison. And I would hear this. People would say this, and it was almost as if I was going to die there, which was the goal for me, to die in prison. A transformation began with this program, with this education, beginning to learn education, to go into these classes and sit in like a fly on the wall, and then I would, just learn these things, or hear about these books, and then want to read these books or talk about these things. Once I opened up my mind to learning and reading these books, before I never thought that I would find anything relatable to these things, but I did over and over again. I was reading everything. I was reading the classics like the Odyssey. Me and Odysseus had a lot in common, I found out. We always trying to, we were trying to find our way back home. I would have discussions with myself in prison, like Socrates, the discourse. Socrates was the wisest man, I learned, because he knew that he knew nothing. And I realized I knew nothing. My street life was totally wrong. I knew nothing. I found the power of education. We ignorantly try to look for powers outside of ourselves, guns, abusing others, bullying people. But once you read about how education throughout the ages, all over the world, is the key, the essential tool to our humanity, it became my path of growth and my own humanity. There was very few things when you're leaving prison that you can take out with you, and a lot of stuff you really don't want to take. You usually passing stuff out, giving things up. But I was able to bring back a Bible, a Bible that I had for so many years, and I was able to bring a poem that I wrote, and this poem that I wrote stuck with me because it almost was one of the moments that I found out that I had to change and look at things differently, and it's called Retrospect. When I review my life in retrospect, I see all of God's laws that I used to neglect, living my life like one of Satan's street soldiers, denying the fact that I had a spiritual defect, pushing drugs on a corner for a few dimes at a time, selling my soul trying to obtain a bankroll. And now I shed black tears for all those years I misled my peers. I pray every day that I could go back to those misdirected years when I misled my peers. Although now I'm blessed by the Holy One of Israel to be one of the ones he uses to resurrect, I wish I would have understood this simple truth in retrospect. I begin to look at things differently, and I begin to say yes to every opportunity that came to me, just like for tonight. When this opportunity came, I said yes, because I usually don't turn anything down, And new experiences, new benefits of learning, challenges, opening up my mind, and exposures. I worked to become a peer educator. While inside, I started a fatherhood class. I studied to get my associate's degree. I became a paralegal, helping many people file clemencies and petitions, and hopefully to relieve a lot of some people 30, 40, 50 years in prison. These classes where I became an educator was my way of reclaiming my power, my education to teach. It let me be it let me take back the power back on how I'm not just a cautionary tale, a prop to be used. I became the teacher, Mr. Jones. And you would hear people talk about me from something of ridicule, or he's not going home to now they're calling me Mr. Jones. And now I walk through this same facility. People would stop and tell me about their assignments, showing me respect, no longer pointing me as that cautionary tale or someone who was never going to be free again. My dedication to education is what led to my release. I learned what the power of the law is. I got my paralegal certification. I invested in legal books. I bought everything from Black's Law dictionaries. I would go in and I acquired books from the library. They would they would discard the old ones after a while, so I would have my cell just filled with books, hiding books like it was contraband, which it was books of contraband in prison. I would read case law, decisions, dissenting decisions, learning Latin. A good friend of mine, Marshawn Allen, he's our policy director at Illinois Prison Project, which I'm proud to be a member of there. He was also a cellmate of mine at one time, but he showed me the benefit and love for the law and studying the law. I learned the language of the law like it was a foreign language, which it actually is for those lawyers in the audience. And ultimately, I was confident to file my own case. I filed my own clemency. I filed my petition to Governor J.B. Pritzker. I didn't have any experience, but I could build a resume, and I did have a good reputation with a lot of the staff there, so I was able to, go into the law library and get copies and do other things, and I was given a job to work in the library. I was blessed by that. So all of those things worked toward me being able to file my clemency, and after my first hearing, my clemency was granted, and I was released after a parole hearing. Thank you for that applause. I told you I started out in prison and I'm here, so I got out. I figured you'd know. Okay. Okay. 28 years ago, I changed my name to Anaviel. It's a Hebrew name, and it means humility of God, signifying my spiritual resurrection. I actually begin to think, like other people begin to think, that I would actually die, and I die in prison, but God had a different plan for me. I was released July 28th of 2021. The work that I do now, today I bear the burden of my destiny, and I'm grateful for it. The work that I do now might be the burden of destiny, the travesties of the criminal justice system today. This is our new fight, I truly believe, as the new civil rights movement. The new civil rights struggle is intertwined with the criminal justice system. Today, still not quite sure what my actual destiny is. Sometimes I wonder that. Others can't make decisions for me in my life anymore, though. Only I can decide what my destiny is and who I am. I am no longer a cautionary tale, but one of determination and humility in the name of God, the name I've chosen for myself. Thank you.
I have many producers here whispering in my ear. Anaviel, thank you for closing out our storytellers with that beautiful story. I want to give a real special shout out to the Illinois Prison Project. It's an extraordinary organization, and Anaviel is a crucial part of it. And I want to do a little shout out because I just found out this week that the next big Shoulder Stories event will be at Filet of Solo. It's Lifeline Theater's storytelling festival. It's amazing. This will be its 28th year. And The show that I'm incredibly proud to be working on and producing is going to be a one-person show featuring my new, very dear friend. New, I mean, we met like a month ago. Ronaldo Hudson, who's here, who's the education director at the Illinois Prison Project. So I want you to look out for more about this. It's going to be amazing. You're going to get to hear Ronaldo's story, and I feel blessed to have met you and Anavil and everyone that I've had the pleasure of being in contact with the Illinois Prison Project. So November 16th, 5:30, Lifeline Theater. Just know that. So couple quick housekeeping. I would love it if you all would come and follow Big Shoulder Stories on Facebook, bigshoulderstories.com. There's a little newsletter. Sign up. Let me know you're out there. Just like Nadia knew that Facebook Live. I don't do Facebook Live. I do newsletters. So I would love to have you all join. I'd love to continue doing events like this, meet more folks like you in the audience and like these amazing tellers. I would love our tellers to come up for a final thank you and a couple of photos. While everyone's coming up here, I want to thank some very special people who have made tonight happen. Ava Berry from HHP Lift, Ronaldo from Illinois Prison Project, Jen Allman, who's here from Nourishing Hope Chicago, Lauren Key from Braven, and of course Rebecca Kling from A Better World Collaborative, who was a storyteller, and Joanne Telserfer from Literacy Chicago. These organizations are phenomenal. You all are phenomenal. Let's hear it for them. Rebecca, Becca, Joanne, Ortez, Christopher, Susan, Nadia, and Anavio. Oh my God, it's paparazzi. You guys are beautiful. So thank you all for being here. Is this a thing? We'll be back in September on some date. I don't know what it is. Do we know it? Yeah, it's the second Monday of September, right after Labor Day. So come back for Is This a Thing? Please follow Big Shoulder Stories. QR code, money, and learn about these wonderful organizations. We're all going to stick around, so please come talk to us. And again, thank you guys. You are phenomenal.